Hello everyone, it's me, Andos. This video is something a little special. A personal thank you to everyone who got me to 200 subscribers this month. Not even in a YouTube game for a year, and making these numbers is just so wild. Special thanks to everyone who has supported my content on this channel, and I guess as a thank you, I wanted to do something a little different, a little more laid back, and seeing how everyone loves to reminisce and look back upon what's come out this far, I want to talk about my faves from wrestling in the first half of 2022, which has been something else. For WWE, seeing people like Cody make his grand return at WrestleMania, Bianca Belair continue to be undeniable as the best homegrown star WWE has produced in a decade, and Roman Reigns continues to be Roman Reigns, and whatever Walter does, still keep the company worth looking into every once in a while. Unfortunately, WWE is a notoriously incompetent company, given how every time the company takes a step forward, they take 5 back, causing world-class talent like Naomi and Sasha Banks to walk out, whatever the hell Judgment Day is, and the ongoing McMahon-Johnny Ace scandal. I think leaving the company behind was the best idea for my mental health. In New Japan, it's business as usual. Okada is champ and everything around it is at its best a revelation, like Zack Sabre Jr. putting on the run of his life in the New Japan Cup, or at worst, it's Okada's champ. All kidding aside, there's just not a lot there to keep me invested the way they used to in 2017 to 2019, but their partnership with AEW going into Forbidden Door at the very least injects the company with curious possibilities and dream matches. Speaking of which, AEW continues to baffle me at an existential level. It's just the insane level of talent they hold, and the dream matches they have at their disposal on an almost weekly basis. They could lose at least 3 whole factions, and it wouldn't take away from how ridiculously loaded they are. Of course, that doesn't mean that they don't get in their own way sometimes with questionable booking, poor utilization of certain talent, pacing of their shows, and the skepticism with what they decide to do with Ring of Honor. But even with that, the sheer limits of what AEW is capable of doing going forward are still genuinely exciting, and worth watching every single week. 2022 also let me take a look at DDT Pro and GLEAT. These independent promotions took up the most of my Japanese pro wrestling watches, and from what I've seen, they've been a good time. The DDT Ultimate Tag Finals brought out one of my favorite tag matches in 37 Kamina vs Disaster Box, but other than that, there just hasn't been a lot of buzzworthy matches, especially since Tetsuya Endo became champion, and the worrisome slide of the company leading into the New Japan Epic territory with their main events, as Endo's match with Takeshita went 46 minutes, and his defense against Yuki Ueno going over half an hour. I wanted to get away from New Japan because of the dull epics, and I really hope that's not a trend going into Wrestle Peter Pan this year. But otherwise, I hope to get back into the madcap world of DDT Pro as the year progresses, and I hope to talk about it more in a positive light going forward. GLEAT, on the other hand, despite how little I've watched, feels like my ideal wrestling promotion. Tight, urgent, and hard-hitting, with most shows never going over 3 hours, I might have to invest more time into getting into them. Tetsuya Izuchi vs Yusuke is one of the most shocking main events I've watched all year. Their utilization of New Japan talent is arguably better than it is in its own company, and El Lindaman, despite how little I know of him, really feels like a charming and charismatic ace that holds the company together. His main event match with Shigehiro Ire being my favorite main event title match in Japan all year. Suffice to say, there's a lot promising in the wrestling landscape the further we get into 2022. But for the purposes of this video, we're here to take a look back at everything that's happened in the first half of 2022, and break it up into different categories to analyze what made those aspects of wrestling the best for 2022 so far. If you're familiar with Chris O'Brien or Joseph Montecillo's retrospectives, this is fairly similar, although in a much more abbreviated format, given the simple fact that I just haven't had the time to watch everything. And if you disagree with any of my picks for best wrestler or best promotion or even best matches I make in this video, I highly encourage anyone in the comments to tell me their faves of 2022 so far. I welcome any opinions, as maybe on a rewatch, I'll look over what I haven't seen, and maybe it'll change my mind going forward. Speaking of which, everything I say here today is 100% subject to change. I'm almost positive that there's going to be something that comes out in the latter half of 2022 that will change the opinions I express here in this video. And that's always the fun of discussing wrestling, and maybe I'll make another video at the end of the year that reflects that change. But either way, enough setup. Let's get into it. This is The Faves, Wrestling 2022, so far.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. You say. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. You say. I
All Elite Wrestling is not a perfect promotion. As someone who predominantly watched this brand over everything else in 2022, I will 100% be the first person to say this. I feel like Tony Khan struggled most of this year properly booking and pacing the cards of his shows, as most weekly Dynamites were so top-heavy, with all their best talent in Punk, FTR, Blackpool Combat Club, and everything MJF was a part of in the first hour, that their second hours always felt like a chore to get through, with the dull TNT title scene, and the lack of vision with their women's roster. The latter continues to be a problem, even though Jade Cargill is a must-watch talent and easily one of the best parts of the AEW product. The same can't be said for the way they've been booking the other 95% of their women's division. Especially when most of the time when women even get the chance to shine, it's through the constant presence of Britt Baker. I don't hate her personally, not nearly like most people on Twitter do, however she is the least interesting component to that division, especially in comparison to other magnetic personalities like Toni Storm, Chris Statlander, and Thunder Rosa. The latter, who after beating Britt Baker for the title, felt less important as champion, as the focus towards Britt Baker was much more prevalent in her win in the Owen tournament. I say all these negatives first because I need you to understand that even with all that in mind, when AEW is good, they're hitting three-pointers from half court. Name me one other promotion in the history of modern wrestling where you can casually tune in every Wednesday and CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, Samoa Joe, FTR, The Young Bucks, Keith Lee, The Undisputed Era, Andrade, and fucking Sting are the most seemingly motivated they've ever been, and performing dream matches on a semi-weekly basis. Their pay-per-views may struggle with length, but there's at least hands down 2 Match of the Year contenders each show, and even on less focused shows like Rampage, stuff like Jon Moxley vs. Wheeler Yuta and the Young Bucks vs. Lucha Bros are the talk of the internet weeks after they've happened. Not even to mention the feuds they've been having, like CM Punk vs. MJF and Wardlow vs. MJF, being so engrossing with how deeply layered they are in the former, and joyously simple in the latter. As I'm writing this, they're having a show in my hometown, and it's all I've been thinking about this whole month, and I really can't contain my joy for how much this company has reignited my love of the art form. Okay, so I get it. I am a coward. But I need you to understand my thought process when it comes to deciding this. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8 represents everything I love in wrestling. Tight, gritty, and uncompromising violence in a fairly brisk pace that never outstayed its welcome. While GLEAT 518 represents everything that I think is an ideal wrestling show, which is tight, urgent, and hard-hitting, while also never outstaying its welcome. Both shows hovered around the 2 hours and 30 minutes range, advertisements and downtime not included, which make them easily digestible to anyone looking for something exciting and different. I would probably edge this more towards Bloodsport if I'm being honest, given the amount of emotion it drew from me. Whether it's Ninja Mac flattening Yo-Yo with a flying spin kick from fucking hell, Timothy Thatcher returning, Mike Bailey obliterating Yuya Uemura's face with roundhouse kicks, and Mox Busick being an uncompromising, borderline religious experience of violence. But with that said, GLEAT 518 was consistently GLEAT. Starting hot with a fun 6-man, and didn't stop for the whole runtime, with an excellent Joshi bout of Das Chisako stomping the soul out of Michiko Miyagi, a blisteringly fun 6-man and Strong Hearts vs 60 Seconds, including the greatest name for a wrestler ever in Jack Cartwheel, as he does, well, what the hell do you think he does? Hiroki Goto in an actual, no-lie, good match, all of this culminating in easily the best main event title match of the year, in El Lindaman vs Shigehiro Ide, a classic David and Goliath narrative that gradually builds into a bomb-laden finishing stretch where every big feat of strength that El Lindaman delivers feels genuine and well-earned. It's tough, but my heart can't bear to separate these two shows. I'm not sure what follows in 2022, or what will top these, especially with Forbidden Door, Wrestle Peter Pan, SummerSlam, and even All Out on the horizon, or whatever GLEAT does to top it. But one thing is for sure, if you haven't seen any of these shows yet, and you're still trying to decide what your favorite things from wrestling in 2022 are, what are you doing? Watch these. now. This was always going to be between this and MJF's feud with Wardlow, but at the end of the day, I think it's the sheer levels and uncomfortable places MJF and CM Punk brought us to that made me pick this over MJF Wardlow. Both men bringing out the absolute best of each other's mic game, whether it was MJF pouring his heart out in sorrow over how he grew up with a learning disability and being bullied, with Punk being the only hero he had, feeling betrayed when he quit when he needed him the most, and Punk opening up to realize his mistakes and trying to mend fences with MJF. The further the story went, the more personal and deeply empathetic both men became, only for MJF to reveal how much of a snake he really was in viciously bloodying CM Punk. And that's not even to talk about the matches. The pair of bouts they had really brought out the best in each other's qualities, as Punk's mastery of psychology and MJF's bastard heel tactics worked perfectly together, culminating in a viciously brutal dog collar match where MJF got exactly what he deserved. It is a shame writing this though, as both men are currently away from the company. MJF's future is completely undecided and remains unsure whether his status is a work or a shoot, and Punk's recent injury caused him to not only miss out on being able to compete in AEW's biggest event of the year in Forbidden Door, but also months worth of dream opponents defending the AEW Championship, having the run he deserves. It is undecided whether we see either man return again for the rest of 2022, but one thing I can say is that if they ever cross paths again, you can damn well guarantee that if it's anything like what they did together this year, we may very well see them in this category again. Oh wow, what? I can't believe it. Let's all pretend to act surprised. Yeah, you saw this one coming. If you know me, i.e. what I post on Twitter, then you know FTR is my favorite tag team of all time. I've been a huge fan of them ever since their feud with American Alpha and NXT, and I've been rooting for their case as an all-timer team ever since. I say this to say that my pick isn't necessarily rooted in fanboy gushing, as I have plenty of evidence to back up their case as the best tag team for the first half of 2022. In fact, I'll be honest and blunt here, and say that FTR's post-WWE run with AEW has been, I'll be nice and say, rough. They were pushed way too hard, way too soon, and had to endure having to wrestle for the titles in bloated melodramatic epics against members of the Elite, going nearly 30 minutes that were just failing to connect with me. Only continuing the struggle to have chemistry with teams in forgettable feuds against Santana and Ortiz and the Lucha Bros, really blunting their case as a team to take seriously for even consideration as an all-timer team, and I was personally worried that they would be forgotten and relegated to guys who were good enough to compete for titles, but never actually hold them. Good to know that 2022 was the year top guys woke up pissed. Spending the early part of the year tagging against CM Punk and Jon Moxley will do nothing but light a fire under your ass, and proceeded to have an insane first half of 2022. I think the real argument for FTR being Tag Team of the Year began with their Ring of Honor title match against the Briscoes, which exists less as a match and more of a goddamn statement. They could hit just as hard, be just as gritty, and match every bit of intensity dem boys could throw at them. And it felt like part of FTR died and another was born, only for that argument to be bolstered even harder 5 days later to drag kicking and screaming the Young Bucks circa 2022 to their best match they've had in AEW since their Revolution 2020 match. Maybe even better? And that's not even to mention how deeply versatile both men are by having great matches in the Owen tournament, proving they're just as capable and psychologically sound as singles performers just as much as they are tag wrestlers. Their first round match against each other being a gorgeous love letter to the type of matches Bret and Owen Hart would have in the WWF, and later, Dax getting arguably the best match out of Adam Cole since Cole joined AEW. As they continue to defend the ROH and AAA tag titles, the potential to put on bangers elevating those titles, along with plans to take the AEW tag titles, feels like less of a matter of if and a matter of when we talk about FTR as Tag Team of the Year. God help everyone when top guys hold the gold. This was a 0-hour pick. For most of 2022, it was a lock for CM Punk being my Wrestler of the Year, and honestly, injury barring, that still might be a possibility. Punk very much has shocked me with how strong his commitment to psychology and technical chemistry has been, even while being gone from wrestling for 7 whole years, and it was all rewarded when he finally got his first title win in over a decade at Double or Nothing, becoming the AEW champion. That all being said, the more I interacted with fellow content creators within my sphere, the more Moxley came into the conversation, and looking back, Moxley did everything Punk did, but was more versatile in how he did it. It wasn't just taking on big names like Bryan Danielson, Will Ospreay, or even against Chris Jericho and his team in the Anarchy in the Arena match. It was in propping up and bringing out the best qualities in younger talent like Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. His teaming with fellow purveyor of violence in Bryan Danielson, and later Wheeler Yuta in the Blackpool Combat Club, made it arguably the hottest act in all of AEW, gleefully violent tag matches, especially in trios matches, and that's not even talking about his presence on the independent scene. As of writing this, he still remains GCW World Champion, and his match against Biff Busick at Bloodsport 8 was easily one of my favorite matches of all of WrestleMania weekend this year. It's pretty clear he's going to be the interim AEW champion, which gives us a cornucopia of challengers to bolster his Wrestler of the Year case, as well as his Blood and Guts match, which, given how wild the Anarchy in the Arena match was, could be even better, and his presence within it only helping that match feel even more special. And that doesn't even include what he could still do on the independent scene. Simply put, it's Wild Thing season, and for the first half of 2022, Mox has done nothing but make my heart sing. Match that refuses to lie to you. A spectacle of over-the-top deathmatch violence that has some of the most creative spots all year. In an effort to save you from hearing me just list off the sheer level of insanity that this match has to offer, I will leave you with one of my favorite bits. There's a moment where Damien666 has an exploding baseball bat and hits Ciclope a few times, expecting an explosion only for nothing to happen. Just for Ciclope to get his hands on it and explodes after one single hit. I don't give a damn if that spot was planned or not, or if the explosive was faulty, but that has to be some of the best heel comeuppance I've seen in a long time. Follow that up with an exploding Shining Wizard, and not one, but 2 exploding ring spots. I really don't know what else I can say to convince you to watch this match. Light tubes go smash, bombs go boom. It's meathead car crash wrestling at its most creative optimum. A heavy recommendation for anyone looking for that hardcore fix. If you've seen fellow YouTuber Nova talk about this in Chris O'Brien's 5 Great Matches Under 5 Minutes, you know what this match is all about. If not, I implore you at all possible to go into this match completely blind. So rarely does a main event of a wrestling show, let alone a Japanese wrestling show, surprise me this much with its content and result, especially given the amount of backstory going into it. When all is said and done, I couldn't help but be in awe of the brevity. It's a ballsy and audacious main event, with a finish that made me jump with how sudden and brutal it was. Izuchi and Isuka deliver a complete, stiff, and sudden battle of wills, and in the end, to quote Nova himself, the Mega Gladers explode. In the words of Simon from Handwork Reviews, a certified goddammer. Getting into DDT Pro, I was immediately told that the tag division goes hard pretty frequently throughout the year, and if any matches surpass this match, then I'm in for a treat. Just a fast-paced sub-20 minute banger that sees Takeshita and Ueno hit flashy high-octane offense, with Yoshimura landing exceptional big boy bombs, with a veteran Harashima holding his own just as well against the much younger talent, with his own flurry of hard-hitting kicks, command of the ring, and expert timing, seen in his reversal of a Doomsday device setup into a Poison Rana onto Takeshita. If I'm being honest though, my favorite part of the match was whenever Yoshimura had the time to shine, as Yoshimura is able to dish out just as much as he takes, and you bite on every attempt at big offense. As every moment Takeshita or Ueno try to stunt his momentum, it only feeds his comeback and will to succeed even more, culminating in a blistering finishing stretch that keeps you on the edge of your seat, as each near fall and move becomes more and more desperate. One of the best tag matches of the year, and while there's still plenty of time to change my mind, my DDT Pro match of the year. If you've watched my Pokotan video, and based on the numbers it did, I'm sure you have, you know I have plenty of respect for the implementation of comedy in professional wrestling. Equally, as a child of the early 2000s, where most of my summer afternoons were spent at my neighbor's house watching MTV, and losing our minds to the ridiculous antics of Jackass. Given the threshold of pain and torture each member put themselves through, it's honestly a shock that it took this long for the Jackass crew to be involved with the WWE in any capacity. But, given that Jackass Forever feels like the final hurrah of the crew, now is as good as any time to do so. And goddammit, this match is just a scream. It doesn't matter if you're a weekly WWE only casual, or a bitter internet smark. This match fucking rules. A glorious spectacle of sports entertainment. The laughs are almost non-stop. Whether it's cameos for Jackass fans in the form of Party Boy displaying his near-naked cheeks to 78,000, to Wee Man beating the shit out of Sami Zayn, to even Sami Zayn taking a bump from the giant hand from Jackass 3. There's something for everyone here to lose it over. Sami Zayn puts on an all-time character performance here, reveling in the ridiculousness of the situation, and selling excellently for the more outlandish spots. Whether it's the disorientation of getting fully air-horned in the ear, or grabbing a table full of mouse traps and the pain of having your fingers trapped in one, I mean, who else can you trust to take a bowling ball to the groin and get pinned by a giant mouse trap? Knoxville equally looks like he's having a lot of fun here, being able to set up all these devices and doing spots with his friends to the sheer bewilderment and agony of Zayn. It should also be noted that the commentary is a hoot the entire time as well. They're as just in awe of what's transpiring, and just as big of fans of Jackass as we are, marking out for all the cameos and devices used. Cole cracking up every time McAfee makes a reference or comparison to Jackass lore is far too precious for words. I really don't have that much to say if I'm being honest. Don't expect anything deep here. Don't think too much. I don't think a match that has a device made purely for kicking someone in the balls deserves that. Just turn your brain off, get some friends, and be sports entertained. This match, in many ways, is a miracle. Not just because it's not even a week removed from their grueling title match against the Briscoes at Supercard of Honor and FTR, but also shows that the Young Bucks are capable of having really compelling matches that don't rely on theatrics or flips and dives. This is a very much so grounded match compared to their last encounter at Full Gear, where they rely mostly on heel dynamics like distracting the ref to hit low blows and belt shots to great effect, and Dax and Cash are really fun baby faces here. Having fun at the expense of the Young Bucks and their tacky accessories, a blistering hot tag from Dax, and hitting fun tandem offense like dual sharpshooters, and reversing the Bucks' Meltzer driver into a tombstone powerbomb combo. That's another aspect of this match that's so compelling. Both teams just know each other so well at this point, and the counters and reversals are so crisp and are able to be paced so well that the escalation of the near falls and signature offense gets you on the edge of your seat, biting for every count. The ending in particular makes me bite every single time, as the Bucks isolate Cash to hit him with the BTE trigger, only for Cash's foot to ever so slightly fall on the rope, dashing the Bucks' title victory. It's such a small moment, but it's just so satisfying, as it's such an on-brand move for FTR, utilizing the regency of the mat rather than just any other team who would have had another 2.9 kick out to build suspense. A textbook tag team match that lays out the dynamics of the competitors perfectly, grounding the Young Bucks to FTR's pace and style, and delivering my favorite Young Bucks match since their Revolution 2020 tag team title match. And as for FTR, well, that's just top guys doing top guy things. Big Time Bex versus Big Match Bianca, blowing it up on the biggest stage of them all. I have to keep reminding myself that this is only Belair's second WrestleMania, because the way she carries herself to the charisma and confidence she exudes makes me believe that she's been doing this for years and years. She's just in her element in environments like this. It also helps that she's across the ring from another one of WWE's most naturally charismatic talents, in Becky Lynch. I love the aggression and urgency displayed in this match. Lynch, fully aware of Bianca Belair's frightening strength and athleticism, really sells the audience on how dangerous and capable Belair is to Lynch, as the more she goes for big moves and calculated counters, the more it feeds into Belair's comeback, and our desire to see her build momentum more and more. Belair has some excellent moments of exciting athleticism here as well, with an impressive second rope 450 splash and backflipping out of a manhandle slam to set up for a definitive KOD. One thing I notice as well that makes this match all the more compelling is just the sheer level of emotion the women are allowed to exude that paint perfectly the frustration of their inability to put the other away. Becky all but breaking down into tears when Belair kicks out of her devastating offense, and returning to the ring after Belair just barely reaches the 10 count, help display how further and further Lynch is to losing this bout, where the desperation overtakes her rational plans. In the end, Belair went through a war against a top-form Becky Lynch, reclaiming the debacle at SummerSlam last year as someone more mentally and physically tough than the year before. Easily the current WWE match of the year, and given her consistency, I wonder how soon we'll be able to call Bianca Belair Mrs. WrestleMania. The best Japanese main event currently, and easily my favorite Puro match of the year so far. Both Lindemann and Ire play their roles to near perfection. Ire is a monster, a locomotive obliterating Lindemann with disgusting looking offense, including a mental crossbody through the middle and bottom ropes, to casually transition into a pile driver onto the wood floor. Not even to mention a disgusting looking headbutt that sounded more like a shotgun going off than noggin on noggin. Lindemann, by contrast, is instantly sympathetic. He's so believable as a babyface, the way he sells and reacts to big offenses. Every 5 forearms he delivers are the equivalent to 1 of Ire's forearms. The way after only taking 1 and he stumbles and all but falls over in pain makes you really believe in the power dynamic between these two. But it's these moments of sympathy against an unstoppable force that make his comeback spots so incredibly satisfying, like a spot where he goes for a big suplex, only to get bombarded with elbows to the neck and head from Ire, only to power through and execute the slam. What's even better is that he really takes his time to sell you on the enormity of the action and how much it takes out of him, often taking much needed time to recover his legs from under him, or just stumbling around to collect his composure, culminating with a scorcher of a bomb fest. That's the kind of stuff that made me get into Japanese pro wrestling to begin with. This match glued me to GLEAT, an excellent conclusion to an already excellent show. It's rare in wrestling that the main event is unanimously the best match on the card, and where the desire to outdo what came before is the ideal motivation in wrestling, these two were emblematic of that philosophy. So far, the most spirited display of earning respect all year. Whether history or booking decisions will be kind to this encounter, as AEW's quote-unquote ruthless aggression moment, one thing is for sure: Jon Moxley awoke a sleeping demon in the form of Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta, fresh off a victory from Supercard of Honor winning their pure title, Yuta wanted one thing and one thing only: respect. He had already impressed Regal and Danielson from the Blackpool Combat Club. All he needed from the group was the respect of one man who had consistently had his number: Jon Moxley. And he wasn't going to ask for respect, he was going to beat it out of him. Yuta explodes out of the gates with a wild dive to Moxley on the outside before the bell rings, leading into a wild brawl from the crowd that sets the tone immediately. And if they didn't make the pace obvious enough, then Mox stomping Yuta's head into the ring steps to kick it in crimson all but seals it. Blood has been a calling card of AEW for most of its existence, whether it's Cody and Dustin's heated encounter at Double or Nothing, to even recently with CM Punk and MJF. But here, The usage of blood isn't just a cool aesthetic or a ramping of intensity, it's a tool to help provide context of the situation Yuta finds himself in and the dangers getting into a fight with Moxley entail. This, of course, makes Yuta instantly sympathetic, as the more blood pours, the more exhausted and wild his actions and movements become, often stumbling over in exhaustion and swinging wildly at nothing. Mox is uncompromising here, ripping and tearing at the wound, reveling in the violence he causes, begging on Yuta to keep coming for more, as if you want to be in Moxley's world, don't expect it to be sunshine and rainbows. Miraculously, Yuta refuses to be denied, his fighting spirit pouring out of him by meeting Moxley halfway, while just as brutal of offense, matching Moxley's intensity and violence in the form of his own head stomps, bulldog choke, and even kicking out of Moxley's finisher. Pushed to his limits, Moxley locks in one last desperate sleeper to finally put away the fiery young warrior. Yuta loses the match, but he wins something even more important, the full respect of the Blackpool Combat Club, as he shakes William Regal's hand in acceptance into the faction. I love this match. I love the pace, I love the usage of blood as a storytelling tool, I love the lengths both men were willing to go to earn each other's respect, and by proxy, the respect of the fans as well. I'll admit, Yuta was a massive blind spot to me given how much praise he was getting in 2021, but after this match, he has become undeniable to me. A star was born on that night, and while many stars don't get made the way Yuta did against Moxley, when they do, it's a lovely reminder of just how promising the future of pro wrestling is, and the sheer potential of the performances that come with it. Cracked out Busick free from the shackles of sports entertainment against a one man just as wild and violent as he is. Hell yeah, I loved this match. It's gritty grappling that gradually descends into pure physical carnage at just barely 11 minutes, but feels so complete in its visceral vision. Say what you will about GCW and its fan base, but there's a genuine, palpable atmosphere here at play. Not just in the appearance of the arena, but in the intimacy of the fans. One moment in particular where a bloody and beaten Busick struggles to gain an advantage against the dominant Moxley, and the crowd just sings Pennywise's Bro Hymn. I get goosebumps every time. It's just such an intimate moment that feels so real, knowing how much the crowd admires and buys into Busick's struggle, and once that sleeping madman is unleashed, his face caked in crimson, nothing else matters but pure, unfiltered fighting spirit. And what a hell of a fight. Sharp knees, stiff chops, stomps, deep submissions, and Busick slapping the taste buds off of Mox. Everything just builds and builds into a zen state where that deep lizard part of your brain just hangs on every single moment. Both men refusing to give the other the taste of victory and refuse to recognize defeat as an option. Perfectly exemplified by Busick delivering just one last sign of defiance by giving Mox the double birds before eating a regal knee from Mox, falling out of consciousness, grueling, compact, and bleeding with emotion. This is Bloodsport. I love tag team wrestling. I may not have seen all the all-time great matches or seen all the all-time great teams perform, but I just think the ethos of the genre is fascinating to me. It's not just about cool combination moves or making sure to tag in and out to keep the other man fresh, or even the matching gear. It's deeper than that, because tag team wrestling is about love. It's the ability to know that the person you share your body with in the ring is going to pull you through whatever troubles you may face. Their struggle is your struggle, their pain is your pain, and your success is their success. A lot of modern tag teams, especially in the WWE, seem to forget that, with how easily teams are split up and put back together only to get split up again. Honest-to-God teams that adhere to this ethos is rare, as one member rises above the other as the breakout star of the team. So seeing two teams that are so deeply passionate about the art collide in a dream match like this was always going to be special. I just didn't expect a modern masterpiece. I wrote and rewrote this section of the video multiple times, as if I were to really give my full feelings, I would lapse into the video essay territory, and while I could, A, that's not the point of this video, and B, Pro Wrestling Outsider already beat me to it, and I refuse to step on their toes. Seriously, go watch his breakdown of it, it's great. So, simply put, if I were to sum this match up in merely 3 words, it would be, I felt it. Every moment of this match, I felt it. From the electricity of the crowd cheering endlessly for Dem Boys and Top Guys, or Tag Team Wrestling, or even the name of the promotion itself. I feel disdain towards FTR as they refuse to respect the Briscoes, be that refusing to shake their hands at the opening, or Dax spitting in Jay's face. I feel the intensity and power of each strike Dax and Jay throw at each other every time they have a strike exchange. I feel the excitement and fire in his heart when Mark Briscoe gets the hot tag and runs wild on both members of FTR. And when Jay Briscoe drops Dax to the floor with that vertical suplex, I feel the worry and dread that Dax may not be able to continue the match. That moment in particular has so much emotion behind it, the way Cash genuinely worries for his tag partner and proves how dedicated and loyal he is to his brother by carrying Dax back into the ring. And when Dax can just barely pin Mark Briscoe for the 3 count and Cash leaps into a hug to console his weary ally, proud of the effort they've both achieved, I cry every time. It's beautiful. Because it matters. Because tag team wrestling matters. In fact, beyond pro wrestling, great art matters. Because sometimes being able to connect with something on a deeply visceral level that outdoes verbose analytical discussion and just feels is the reason why I love this art form so much. It's a deeply emotional, meticulously paced, and viciously hard-hitting masterpiece. The greatest tag team match I've seen in years, and each team deserves every bit the accolades of having a match that cements their place in wrestling legend. It's really going to be hard to top this match as my match of the year going into the end of 2022, but if anything does, it will more than earn it. Because it's going to take something special to make me feel the way FTR and the Briscoes did on that night. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary buds, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed this little retrospective I put together, and I look forward to working on much bigger projects in the future. But for now I wanted to do something quick and fun that will spark conversation amongst my subscribers and followers. Getting to 200 while I started barely 7 months ago is so wild, as this community has been nothing but welcoming and supportive of everything that I analyze and discuss. More importantly, I want to thank some special people who got me to where I am right now and worked super hard in this community to make it such a great place to be. Getting advice from ReloadLastSave when you're just starting out is like getting advice on how to play guitar from Alex Lifeson. Dude has been a veteran in the YouTube wrestling community, working on and editing projects for OSW Review, which, if you spent any time within the wrestling YouTube sphere, is a big flipping deal. And I hope I do right by him the way I edit my videos, as his keen eye for subtle detail and humor makes that series such a delight to watch. Thank you for telling me about the phantom frame and managing my volume when I balance my vocal performance with the audio of the music that I use. It's something I'm trying to be more mindful of, and I'm glad when I do, I think about your advice. Chris O'Brien was the very first guy who really gave me a shot and pushed my stuff when I linked it to him on Twitter the first night I joined. I was equally grateful when he allowed me to collaborate with him on his 5 great matches under 5 minutes alongside other fantastic YouTubers like Nova and Cherry Chase. The latter, maybe keeping an eye on for a future collaboration? Just saying? That being said, Chris has helped me really expand my view on wrestling by expanding my view towards smaller promotions like DDT Pro and GLEAT. He also has really fun live streams that I frequent every once in a while when I have the time, and he's always fun to talk to when it comes to wrestling or comics or what have you. And finally, Joseph Montecillo has been quite the motivation for me getting into making video essays. I've already talked about how grateful I've been to be a part of his Chris Jericho project and the way he's helped push my channel, but it really is just awesome seeing someone that you've watched for years and getting the opportunity to collaborate the way that we have. Everyone is just so creative, and the fact that I'm here and I get to exchange ideas and be a part of such a great community means a lot to me, and I look forward to see what I set out to accomplish here next. As always, my socials and the socials of everyone I discussed here are in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Much love to all of you, and take good care of yourselves.